Welcome to Creative Thinking with Kim Thomas, a podcast from the Village Chapel in Nashville, Tennessee. Together we'll explore where faith and art meet and how creativity can draw us closer to the heart of God. Our hope is to inspire, inform, and encourage creative thinking from a biblical perspective. For show notes, resources, or to learn more about our ministry, visit thevillagechapel.com. Now, here's Kim.
Over the past weeks, we've practiced ceasing from what drains us: stress, hurry, noise, over-consuming, and feasting on what restores us. Today, we return again to the practice of ceasing, and what we are laying down, as best we can, is fear. The most often repeated command in Scripture is simple and astonishing: do not fear. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when adults are afraid of the light. Plato. After my swim one day, I lay back in the pool and let my arms float out to my sides. I pulled in a deep breath and allowed my body to rest on the surface of the water. Through my tinted goggles, I stared up at the ceiling in the Y, 20 feet above me. Bright flags hung still in the sunlight. Children played, adults moved around me as if I were invisible, and I was grateful for that. With my earplugs still in, the sounds were muffled and distant, and I stayed there as long as I could, suspended between water and air, wanting just for a moment to feel light instead of heavy with fear. My compass bearing felt just this side of heaven. Fear has weight. On September 11th, 2001, Jim and I spent the morning afraid we had lost his mother in the attack on the Pentagon. She had worked there for years and was due to retire at the end of that month. That morning, she was in the section adjacent to the impact and escaped unharmed. When we finally heard the words, "She got out," we released our breath like people who had been underwater too long. By dinner, we were holding our breath again, this time for my mother. That day, she was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis. The word itself felt like a sentence. We researched obsessively, clinging to phrases like less aggressive form, trying to manage fear with information. But fear had already begun to make itself at home. What followed was more than a year of living with fear. Fear of losing parents, fear of phone calls, fear of waiting rooms and test results. Fear condensed my world. It made mornings unbearable, and night brought temporary numbness, and then morning brought the weight again. One afternoon, waiting for a conference call that we knew would bring difficult news, I walked the cul-de-sac where we lived. My prayers were shallow and repetitive. Oh God, please. Oh God, please. On the third lap, I sat down on the curb and absent-mindedly just searched through the clover with my fingers. I found a 4-leaf clover, 2 leaves perfect, and 2 bent and torn. There's no theology to it, but there was presence, a quiet knowing. Things would not be perfect, but they would be okay. That phone call told us that my father had lung cancer. Fear ripened again. The months that followed blurred together. Diagnoses reversed, replaced, retracted. Vocabulary I never wanted. Doctors' voices muffled by adrenaline. Finally, after surgery, we learned Dad did not have cancer at all, but a serious fungal infection. It was not life-threatening. We exhaled. Oh God, thank you. Oh God, thank you. We rested briefly. Later, that week, my mother's tests confirmed her condition was chronic but not fatal. Fear loosened its grip, but that was temporary. We planned Christmas. We imagined what normal would be like again. But then only a couple of days later, we learned actually Mom had lung cancer. Fear doesn't politely excuse itself. It comes bounding back in. It tightens the chest. It steals rest. Fear does not offer Sabbath rest. So I found myself desperate to cease from fear, not because it isn't real, but because it cannot be my ruler. Isaiah 43 tells me that God knows my name, that when the waters rise, He will be with me. And the waters were high. I didn't have the strength to swim, so I did what I did in the pool. I floated. Metaphorically, I threw my arms wide and trusted that I was being held, somewhere between here and heaven, buoyed not by certainty, but by the presence and promise of a good God. Fear may still visit, but it will not be my home. As we walk the way of Lent, may we notice what is frightening us and gently lay it down. Today, may you cease from what exhausts you and step nearer to the Sabbath rest that Christ freely gives.
We're so glad you joined us for Creative Thinking with Kim Thomas. If today's episode encouraged or inspired you, share it with friends or family, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. To explore more resources or to support our ministry, visit thevillagechapel.com.